Hello, I'm Dallas from Rhizo Sciences. In this video, I want to share with you one of our international projects. This is the Medi Kingdom project in Lesotho, Africa. Medi Kingdom has been growing since 2016. They're one of the first international emerging country producers. There's no local market in Lesotho, so they're an exclusively export project. And we plan to grow this to 35,000 square meters or around 375,000 square feet in 2018, which will really make it one of the largest exporting cannabis producers in the world. So Lesotho is a landlocked country inside South Africa. We like to talk about it as the Switzerland of South Africa. It's very rich in diamonds and water, and otherwise they're mostly a subsistence agricultural economy, and they're really keen to develop their manufacturing and value-added agriculture, and so cannabis is a really natural fit. Additionally, Lesotho has long been a cannabis producer. Obviously, it's an illegal crop at the moment, and they want to help transition that local economy, which is largely reliant on cannabis as a cash crop, like many African countries and impoverished countries around the world, and help them transition into a legal framework. And so we're doing this by starting with a very high-tech, compliant cannabis production facility, but then over time we'll be able to expand that out into sort of contract outgrowing, which might be through CBD and other things rather than THC cannabis, but it will all be medical cannabis and all legal. So the plan is to develop a significant new industry here that will benefit the local people and obviously help grow our business and our network of cannabis facilities around the world. Okay, I'll just quickly show you where they've come from. So they set up in 2015 and worked with the local government to legalize the industry for export only. There's no domestic market whatsoever. Everything's being done correctly through the INCB. So it's a very compliant situation, and Medi Kingdom has been maintaining very high standards of compliance throughout, which is one of the reasons why they're such an attractive investment for us. In order to get started, they imported legal cannabis seeds from some of the best medical strains around the world. They're growing both high THC and high CBD strains. We're very much approaching this as medical cannabis. It's not supposed to be an industrial hemp type project, but we will be using high CBD, of course, because that's an important part of our product line. They also have some fantastic local land races. And if you know much about cannabis, Africa is one of the main sources of some of the most potent medical cannabis strains, and there's some very interesting, unique strains from the region. In their first R&D grow, they were growing mostly indoors and also in polytunnels, so greenhouses where they would grow clones that had been selected for particular phenotypes out and then grow them to a vegetative stage with supplementary lighting so that they could grow throughout the year and bring on at least a couple of crops per year, and then plant them out under shade cloth. Now, Lesotho is very high altitude. They're blessed with abundant sunlight, abundant water, cheap power as well, but there's actually too much light. So they had to put shade cloth over to stop the plants from burning. And that also means it's more like a greenhouse environment where you get consistent, controllable weather. They had heating as well for the colder times of year to make sure that the plants grow at maximum speed throughout the year. And then as the plants come into flower, they're harvested at peak maturity when resin content is at its highest. THC and CBD levels are at their highest, and then the product could be packaged for export. And so that was their 2017 crop. In 2018, we'll be expanding on a 20-hectare site to a total canopy of 35,000 square meters. Now that will include some existing greenhouses that they've already got on this site, as well as eventually expanding up to around 35,000 square meters of new high-tech greenhouse. By going to this high-tech greenhouse, what we can do is provide a year-round controlled environment for optimal growth. And this is particularly important if we're wanting to make a consistent pharmaceutical-grade product, because we need to make sure that product is of the same standard, the same consistent quality year-round. We also use light deprivation technology, which allows us to do 5 harvests per year. So then every 10 weeks, we can be putting a new set of flowering plants in, take them all the way through to harvest, and that can double the production through the year, as well as providing a higher quality and a more consistent quality of product. When we're growing in this environment, the clones are started in a hydroponic rock wool environment and then moved out into a hydroponic environment, all under natural sunlight, but with complete control of the amount of light that they get. Now they've got some unique strains there, including the high THC strains and high CBD strains. Durban, which is nearby, is renowned for its high THCV strains. So we'll be selecting specific strains for their cannabinoid and terpene profile, which we need for our final product forms. Now, to ensure that the quality and consistency is there, we use independent third-party testing. So far, that's been done by exporting product to Canada for testing, but moving forward, we'll be setting up an independent third-party testing lab in Lesotho that can service both our company and other local companies, as well as other emerging producers in Africa. Now, once we've grown the flower, we can export it, but increasingly the market is moving toward concentrates like oils and extracts and isolate and pharmaceutical grade products. So to get there, we use an extraction system which extracts the oil from the plant, and then we're just dealing with the active ingredients such as cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and that can be controlled and produced to a consistent standard, which is, again, you'll hear me saying consistent, because that's what we need when we're producing any food or pharmaceutical product. And that's what's missing from your typical outdoor grow or a black market medical cannabis product. They just can't provide that consistency and certification. So once we've extracted the oil, that can then be further purified by distilling it, which takes out the specific fractions of oil that are rich in cannabinoids or specific terpenes. That oil can then be exported as a bulk product. So we're planning to export a lot of bulk product to producers in Canada, Australia, the UK, and New Zealand and Europe. So they're companies that are already producing oil, and we can produce flour for cheaper than we can sell it to them for cheaper than they can grow it themselves. And that way they can focus on producing final product forms. Alternatively, we can refine that oil further and we can extract the individual ingredients. We can isolate individual ingredients, and any of these compounds can then be blended back together into final product forms, such as a liquid oil that can be taken orally or a capsule. There's a whole range of different medicines we can make from it. Often we will refine the individual cannabinoids to a powder, which could be a pure powder or a water-soluble powder, or it could be pressed into tablets. So there's a lot of different ways that the plant can be turned into more familiar medical formats, because one of the biggest obstacles to getting cannabis prescribed is that doctors just don't know what to do with a plant. They don't know what to do with an oil. That's not a familiar product form. So by turning that into a capsule that contains X many milligrams or a tablet, that's a much more familiar format, and doctors are much more likely to prescribe something that looks more like what they consider to be real medicine. And there's a whole range of products that we can turn this into. We can also manufacture for other companies from this facility. So if an Australian or a Canadian company approaches us and says, we'd like to buy some oil to make these capsules or to make this vape cartridge, then rather than them having to import the oil and do it themselves, we can actually manufacture this within our facility to an international GMP standard that will be accepted and be able to be sold anywhere around the world. And obviously there's lots of different benefits to medical cannabis. If you read something from the FDA in the US or the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, you'll get the impression that not much is known about this plant, and it might be good for medicine, but we don't really know. In fact, there is an enormous amount of evidence. There are literally hundreds of clinical trials, both in vitro and in vivo, in animals, clinical research trials in people where they've looked at specific conditions. So we know an enormous amount about the plant. We need to know a lot more, and that's very hard to do because of the overall attitude toward cannabis. But without doubt, there have been tremendous advantages demonstrated for cannabis, including fantastic pain relief, an anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety and antidepressant, antibacterial, antifungal and antiviral activity, including activity against MRSA or staph multi-resistant Staph aureus, which is a huge problem in hospitals. There's activity against diabetes and obesity, anti-epilepsy and anti-seizure. This is probably one of the most famous cases of use of cannabis where people have had, often children with severe seizures have found a lot of benefit. Anti-glaucoma, again, a very well-known use. Cannabis lowers the pressure in the eye for people with glaucoma. Cannabis can inhibit tumor growth. That's been shown very clearly in vitro models, looking at the markers on cannabis, and also in animal studies, as well as lots of results from people, mostly anecdotal, mostly single cases, but there is a clear sign that that's the case. Some fantastic activity for skin conditions, including psoriasis and acne. So cannabis and CBD are going to be absolutely massive in the cosmetics, dermatology, and wellness sector. Cannabis and CBD can be useful to help people withdraw from opiates and reduce dependence on other drugs. And it can stimulate appetite in cases of HIV or cancer or other situations where people are very unwell. PTSD is another one I haven't put here, but a huge range of areas have shown genuine promise. And, I encourage you to look up the studies for yourself. So effectively, what our facility here in Lesotho can do is to produce the flower packaged and then produce oils, isolated ingredients, and package final product forms such as tinctures, oral oils, capsules, tablets, etc. The oil can then also be used for edibles. So in some countries, edibles and beverages are legalized. That might be drinks or chews or gummy bears, as well as baked products like cookies and brownies. So when we approached Medi Kingdom, one of the things that they liked most about what we had to offer was that we're very much focused on the pharmaceutical market. We've all heard what a big industry cannabis is going to be, $50 billion by 2025, or on this graph, 50 billion by 2029. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the cannabis-derived pharmaceutical market is likely to match this. So right now, Big Pharma is largely against cannabis, but you can bet that they are very busy in the background developing their own cannabis-derived technology. Often they're trying to do this synthetically and not having much luck. And as a result, cannabis, which is known to be very safe, there has never been a death from cannabis overdose. Obviously, there are many side effects with cannabis, like with any drug. It's not suitable for children. Some people get anxiety or paranoia or even psychosis, like with many drugs. So it's not a cure-all, and it's not a perfectly safe drug, but it is known to be a very safe drug. Never a single death. So there is huge potential in the market, and what we will see is a massive explosion in the pharmaceutical interest in cannabis. And so that's what we're really going after at Rhizo Sciences, in contrast to most of the medical cannabis companies. And one of the reasons we're so happy with the Lesotho location is that we can export anywhere in the world. We can produce very cheaply because we have abundant sunlight, abundant water, very cheap electricity, and very cheap labour, but very highly skilled labour. The workforce there is educated to a high degree, they're hungry to learn, and there's a traditional expertise with this plant. So we plan to utilise all those to produce cannabis at a very low price, and we'll be able to export it around the world and produce our own products at a price that means they can be affordable to consumers, as well as selling wholesale ingredients to other producers for them to produce their own product forms. And one of the things we love about the Medi Kingdom group is that they're not just in this for the money. And a lot of the cannabis industry is driven by money. There are huge profits to be made. We plan the wholesale export output of Medi Kingdom over 12 months of this facility, when it's completed, could be worth $100 million. So there is a lot of money in this industry, but these guys from the beginning have put an enormous amount of money into local aid work and charity work, working with other charities. They've set up their own foundation, the Medi Kingdom Foundation, which is a non-government organisation which helps to distribute food and medicine. They've distributed over, well, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of medicine and food in Lesotho, which is a significant proportion of their budget, and they've achieved a tremendous amount with the work that they've done so far on the grow side. But this extra work has made all the difference in terms of getting things happening in the country. So moving forward, we have a plan to expand beyond the indoor grow and into outdoor growing, and that will probably be high CBD cannabis. I should emphasize that throughout our plans, we're always preparing for adjustments. So, for example, there could be some crackdown on high THC cannabis and we can just shift into high CBD. So we're building up our CBD stocks as well as our THC stocks, and we plan to move into high CBD, what some people call hemp, but really it's medical cannabis that's high CBD, first on our own property, but then outsourcing that growing to local farmers. And that's one of the ways that we plan to distribute the rewards of this industry into the community in Lesotho, as well as scale up our production very economically so we can produce at one of the lowest costs throughout the whole world. So thank you, and I'm glad I had a chance to share this with you today. If you have any questions about the Lesotho project, the Medi Kingdom project, or our other international projects, I'd encourage you to get in touch with us at Rhizo Sciences, so RHIZO sciences.com. We also handle all product inquiries and media inquiries for Medi Kingdom. So if you're interested in sourcing wholesale product, if you want to import final product forms, or if you want to talk about other possible partnerships, or you're a media person and want to get in touch, or an investor and interested in investing in this type of project, then get in touch with us at Rhizo Sciences. Happy to talk more, and looking forward to sharing some exciting news as we move forward with this project in 2018.